It was not the government's job to interfere with this. They believed in pure, unfettered capitalism, and so they did very little or nothing to alleviate the crash. They said it'll solve itself. The market broke very sharply, and a lot of people were wiped out with it. It was very painful. Almost everybody lost money, as has happened now.
Oh, the market's not so good today. Your stocks look kinda sick. In fact, they all drop down a point each time the tickers tick.
It's estimated that by the end of these 5 days trading, $25 billion worth of personal wealth had simply disappeared.
The stock market continues to sag without end. Have orders in to sell everything. I figure I'll have about 500 left if I'm lucky. A humble ending to a potential profit not 4 months ago of nearly 100,000. At least, I say to myself, I lost all in the greatest panic in history.
I was very lucky. I never lost my job. I did get a cut in salary. Fortunately, my employers were wealthy people. And when they told me about this, they said, why are you smiling? I said, I thought you were going to fire me.
Those who could afford to faced their losses with black humor.
I am one of the lambs that Wall Street has shorn. When I was a little girl, a patron of art left me $1 million for my musical education. But I thought I couldn't live on the income from $1 million. So I asked all my rich friends for tips on the market. They gave them to me, and I lost my $1 million. Now the only thing I have left is this chinchilla coat of mine. From now on, my hands are off the ticker and on the piano keys. But if you're lucky enough to have $1 million, hold everything and don't play the market.
Another performer who had gambled and lost was Groucho Marx. His reckless speculation cost him everything he'd earned. The fate of Alice Austin, the photographer from Staten Island, was also typical of those who had been lured into the market without realizing the risks.
Basically, she loses everything. In 2930, her account is wiped out. And it comes as a shock for Alice Austin. And I don't think she believes it. Like a lot of people, you just can't believe it. And she thinks all I have to do is to wait a little bit and the market will come back. And she continued living as if she was rich. And Alice Austin mortgaged her house, not to pay her bills, but because she once again wanted to take a fancy trip to Europe.
My father lost everything. He was losing everything, but he was 22. He took it magnanimously. You know, when you're 22, it isn't as dramatic. The people around him who were, established people in their 50s and 60s and were losing their life savings were in an absolute panic.
Not everyone coped with their losses. Although the number of suicides has been exaggerated, to some, it seemed the only way out.
I know that people read about the stories on Wall Street of people opening the windows in their offices and jumping out. That actually happened. That isn't an urban legend. People did commit suicide. People who had worked 30 and 40 years on Wall Street and had amassed fortunes within a period of days lost everything.
I'm sorry I was unable to return the 2 books until now. The conditions down in the financial neighborhood have been such as to keep us working. Yesterday, a woman jumped from the roof of our building, 44 floors, right past our window. I saw her body lying in the street, and the sight was so harrowing that I became half sick.
The effects of the catastrophic crash on Wall Street rippled out across America. Even those who had never owned shares and who had never benefited from the stock market boom became victims too. The crash had undermined Americans' faith in their fragile banking system, made up of thousands of small-town banks that lacked the size or reputation to convince customers that their money was safe. As confidence in the economy sank further, a domino effect began. In 1931, over 2,000 banks failed.
After the crash, the banks closed. That, I think, affected us a little more seriously, us, meaning us, the people of my stature. Many people had money in the bank, little bit of money, a couple of $100, $1,000 maybe.
There was no infrastructure then. There was no Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to guarantee people's deposits. There was no way to back up the banks. So if the banks had made bad choices, you as a depositor paid for it. You went to go get your money, it wasn't there. And then people would hear that the bank down the street wasn't good, and they worried about their own bank, and then that would cause a run on their bank. And it became a terrible, vicious cycle. And something like 3,000 banks closed in the following couple of years after that. The whole financial system then seemed not just unstable, but worthless.
After that, when people saved money, they were very leery of banks, and money went under the mattress.